Shabbat Shalom. Happy Sabbath. Art thou a sovereign then? Art thou a king? Then, says Pilate in his conversation with Yeshua. That's our subject today, and I would like to invite you to the book of Yohanan, chapter 18, and we will begin at verse 29. Pilate therefore came out to them and said, "What accusation do you bring against this man?" They answered and said to him, "If he were not an evildoer, we would not have delivered him up to you." Then Pilate said to them, "You take him and judge him according to your law." The Yehudim said to him, that's the Jews, "It is not right for us to put anyone to death." In order that the word of Yeshua might be filled, which he spoke, signifying by what death he was about to die. Got to understand what is happening here. They want him dying by crucifixion, and they were only able to use the death by stone. The Romans had the authority to do that. Verse 33, then Pilate went back into the palace and called Yeshua and said to him, "Are you the sovereign of the Yehudim? Are you the king of the Jews?" That's our subject. Yeshua answered him, "Do you say this from yourself, or did others talk to you about me?" It is an interesting and intriguing passage, because as I read this passage, it brings to mind my own experience as a young indentured apprentice at British Steel. And you ask, how so? There I learned that thermal expansion defines the tendency of an object to change its dimensions, either in length, density, area, or volume. When you eat up a metal, a piece of metal, it expands and it changes. So this morning we are dealing with the expansivity of the kingdom of Iyar. That's what we're dealing with. And so we're looking at the coefficient of expansion, wherein the purity of the word of Yah is increased on the earth. When Yeshua came as a young man into the earth, the viscosity of the word was such that it wasn't flowing as it should. Think of honey or molasses. Sometimes they get so thick that you cannot pour them. The viscosity of it doesn't allow it to flow. And so Yeshua got 12 men and sent them out 2 by 2, and then let the world know that they ought to speak to them and teach them all that he had commanded them, so that the gospel could now flow. And so that's what we're dealing with this morning the coefficients of expansion of Iyar's kingdom. So Pilate asked him, "Are you a king then? Are you?" He wants to know. Verse 33, again, then Pilate went back into the palace and called Yeshua and said to him, "Are you the sovereign of the Yehudim? Are you the sovereign of the Jews?" Let's go to verse 36. Yeshua answered, "My reign is not of this world. If my reign were of this world, my servants would fight so that I should not be delivered to the Yehudim, but now my reign is not from here." Understand what's happening. At this particular time in history, they only have one regard for Caesar. Caesar is king. We must understand that. Because this morning we're dealing with the expansion of the kingdom and the spreading of the word. Perhaps it's no surprise that Yeshua himself said that I am the bread. So you could spread that word on the bread, and he says, "Eat me." And we must eat his flesh and drink his blood. But the point I want to make at this particular juncture is that at the time that Yeshua came into the world in Israel, Israel was a colony of Rome. So in that regard, Yeshua was born in a colony. Many of us from the islands and elsewhere, we were born and raised in a colony. Britain, as you know, a constitutional monarch, colonized these islands, and we were born in a colony. Yeshua was born in the colony of Rome, a kind of Greco-Roman system, because Rome borrowed from the Greeks, as we just read in the Maccabees, chapter 1 and chapter 6, how they asked Israel and forced them to change their laws to become like the Greeks. And so when Rome came to power, they borrowed from the Greeks, and we have this Greco-Roman system that America borrowed from. And so the Constitution of America and the system of government, the three branches, executive, judicial, and legislative, that's all part of the Greco-Roman system. And Yeshua was born in a colony like that. And the Pilate here that we referenced earlier was that tetrarch, that governor that was sent to control the area. And so I want you to know that prior to that era, whenever a king captures a particular people, as in the case of Nebuchadnezzar when he took Judah and brought them to Babylon. And also when the Assyrians took the 10 scattered tribes and brought them to Babylon and also to the cities of the Mede, they then take the captives and make them like they are. But in the Greeks and the Roman, it was different. They did not take the people and bring them to their land. They left the people where they were. And then they brought Rome and brought Greek or Greece to them. And so wherever they were in the colony of Rome, you become a Roman. And so you understand the statement, if you are in Rome, you do as the Romans do. Because they didn't move you, they come to you and they brought Rome to you. They would teach you their culture, they would teach you their language, you would speak Latin, you would worship the way they do, and you would ingratiate yourself in their culture in the sense that you become a Roman because you're living in the colony. So when Pilate here asked the question, it was a loaded question because he recognized it is the clash of two kingdoms. And Yeshua had come down not only to restore that which Adam had lost, but he was down here to expand the kingdom. So Pilate asked him, are you a king then? Are you the sovereign of the Yehudim? And he makes it clear. He said, for this purpose was I born. Did you get me? Are you a king? Notice the point here that ought not to be missed. He did not come to establish a religion. He came to establish a kingdom. Pilate did not ask him, so are you a priest then? Didn't ask him that. Because Hebrews 8 and verse 4 makes it graphically clear that while he was on earth, he was not a priest. That would not have troubled them in the way that his kingship would, because Caesar at that time was king. And you can't have two kings in one kingdom. So Pilate wants to know so that he can feed back to Caesar. And now you understand why Herod was so troubled that he began killing all the baby boys because they realized that a king was in town. And this king had come to expand the kingdom of heaven and to make earth a colony. And that's why Yeshua said, when you pray, and you pray to he who doesn't live on earth, you must pray this way: let thy kingdom come on earth. Let the culture in heaven, let the rulership, let the laws, let the attitudes of heaven come on earth, because I want to expand the kingdom, the coefficients of the expansion of the kingdom of heaven. I want to do that. And so when Pilate understood this, he did not want to carry any misinformation to Caesar. He wanted to get it clear. Are you a king then? Are you a king? Not a priest. Because religion, it alleges. Religion alleges that man will go to heaven, whereas the word here says the kingdom is coming down to earth. Religion tells you you're going to heaven, but the word says you're going to be reigning with him in his kingdom on earth. Religion makes you a member of a church, but what he brings is that you will be a citizen in his kingdom, not a member. And so there was trouble in Israel. For this purpose was I born. I was born to be king. Because the intent has always been to come down to earth and extend the influence, the government on earth. And that's why he said in Matthew 6:33, seek ye first the kingdom and all his righteousness. And everything else that you seek is already in the kingdom, and it will be handed on to you. We have got to understand that. And so, religion, or the church, I should say, is a means to an end. The objective of which is the kingdom of Iyar. In other words, the churches, the denominations, were supposed to be like coordinates in a sieve, consisting of wire meshes in a frame. And a sieve is used to separate what? The coarse material from the fine. And therefore, the church was supposed to be that through its teaching, be that sieve that separate the coarse material that comes from the world and make us fine vessels for the kingdom. But the church has reneged upon its duty. Are you with me? And also, it may well be said the kingdom is like immigration, passport control, custom clearance. It's about a group of people traveling from one country to another. And so we have to pass border control. And that's what the church was supposed to do. But seemingly in the contemporary world in which we live, the church is letting in illegal immigrants. People whose behavior does not bear witness to the word of Yah. They may have a good standing in their churches, but they are not citizens of the kingdom. And so we have a problem. And as we look at this, we see how the churches have been Romanized and Corinthianized. Are you with me? That's what we're dealing with. And therefore, we ought to make sure that this doesn't happen to us. When Yeshua came, he made it quite clear in Luke 16:16. What did he say? He said, the laws and the prophets were proclaimed, they were preached up until John. Did you hear me? John was the last one, Yohanan, the last of those Old Testament prophets. The laws and the prophets were preached up until John. But now, but what? But now the kingdom has arrived. And moreover, he says that everyone is forcing their way into the kingdom, are pressing into the kingdom. That's what religion does. Religion forces its way into the kingdom, but faith in Yeshua walks through the door. And so we want to address that. We want to address that. He said, this gospel of the kingdom must be preached to all the world, and then the kingdom will come. Now, let's cast our minds back to the time of Noah, because when we read in Matthew chapter 12, we're told that when they asked him, well, when will these things be, in reference to his second coming? He said, it will be like it was in the time of Noah, meaning that Yah had told Noah to build him a ark, a place of safety, because when the torrents come, he will be safe with his family. And as we read through the word, we see that Noah was quite studious in building the ark, and when it finished, and not before then, Yah said, okay, it is end now. The doors were shut, and some were locked out and some were locked in. Now, Yeshua is saying the end will come not when you preach religion, but when you preach the gospel of the kingdom. So you kind of get the impression that the church is holding back the coming. Because he's saying, when this gospel is preached, then the end will come. But what have we been preaching? He says, the laws and the prophets were preached up until John. But now, the kingdom must be preached. And just to consolidate that point, come with me to the book of Mark, Mark chapter 9, and let's emphasize the point a little bit more. The word says, and he said to them, truly I say to you that there are some standing here who shall not taste death at all until they see the reign of Elohim, until they see the kingdom of Yah having come in power. You will not die. He's talking to them. They were percipient eyewitnesses. And after 6 days, representing the 6,000 years, at which time he will come for the second time. Because we're dealing with the year-day principle here. You know, a day is 1,000 years on Yah's calendar. Verse 2, after 6 days, Yeshua took Kepha and Jacob and Yohanan, Peter, James, and John, and led them up on a high mountain alone by themselves, and was transformed or transfigured before them, and his garments became glittering, exceedingly white, like snow, such as no launderer on earth is able to whiten. And there appeared to them Eliyahu and Moshe, Elijah and Moses. And they were talking with Yeshua. And Kepha responding said to Yeshua, Rabbi, it is good for us to be here and to let us make 3 booths, one for you, one for Moshe, and one for Eliyahu, because he did not know what to say. Sounds like us, doesn't it? For they were exceedingly afraid. And there came a cloud overshadowing them, and the voice came out of the cloud saying, This is my son, the beloved, hear him. Hear him. He's saying, John the Baptist. Remember, John the Baptist was the immerser. He baptized people, but he was not a Baptist. We need to understand that. He was not a Baptist. And certainly he was the witness of Jehovah, but he was not a Jehovah's Witness. And his preaching was about the advent of his coming, but he was not an Adventist. Because he did not bring a religion, he brought a kingdom. He's talking about a government. That's what we're dealing with. He wants to expand the kingdom of heaven and make earth a colony where we live, just like in the days when we lived in the island and we were under British rule and we learned the British songs, we learned the British culture, we speak like they do. That's what he wanted to do. So when Pilate saw this was a clash with Caesar, and the people in the thronging were saying, we have no other king but Caesar, Pilate wanted to know for himself, are you a king then? For this purpose was I born. You didn't hear me. Let me say it again. For this purpose was I born. What then is truth, Pilate says. The truth is, Pilate didn't wait for the answer. He asked the question, what is truth? But he didn't wait for the answer. Isaiah says, for unto us a what? A what? A child is born, but the son is given. I was born to be a king. Why? Because you can't have 2 kings in the same kingdom. Are you with me? And so we understand that as we read Psalm 115. Come with me there. Psalm 115. And let's dilate upon the 15th and the 16th verses. Ye are blessed of Iyar, which made heaven and earth. Verse 16, the heaven, even the heavens, are Iyar's. Whose are they? Iyar's. But the earth has he given to the children of men. Is that clear? The heavens, they belong to Iyar. But the earth, he has given to the children of men. But religion teaches and alleges that the children of men will go to heaven. But he says, no, it was not given to you. And Adam was given dominion over the earth, and he lost it to Satan. And Yeshua said, I have come to restore that which was lost. What was lost? The kingdom. The kingdom was lost. And so when he brought the three Talmudim, the disciples, and showed them Moses and Elijah, he was in essence saying the law that Moses represented, the lawgiver, and Elijah represented the prophet, these were preached up until the time of John the Baptist. But now that I have come, all that they have preached, I will now fulfill it. I will now demonstrate it. I will now walk you through and show you how it ought to be kept. The kingdom. This is how you must live in the kingdom. I'm going to be an example in righteousness for you. They spoke about me in the Old Testament, but now I'm in the New. I'm going to be that example. You want to know how to live in the kingdom? Follow me. That's what he's saying. That's what our great example, our advocate, our attorney, our judge, our savior, our king. He's all to us. It's all of him and none of us. That's what he's saying when he said that. The laws and the prophets, they were preached up until John. That's the theory. Everything that they said about me, I'm now here to fulfill it. Then he writes, as recorded by Matthew in chapter 5, therefore, think not, don't even conceive the thought that I have come to destroy anything that the prophets wrote or what Moses wrote. I have not come to do that. You don't do that. Don't even conceive the thought. Don't preempt that. I have come to magnify the law. I have come to fulfill the law. I have come to show you it is possible to live without sin. That's what he's saying. I have come to bring the influence of heaven to expand the realm of heaven and to make earth a colony. Pilate was struck. Pilate says, I don't see any problem with this man. But they said, even as we're seeing in our own political system here, and we have to be wise. The word teaches that when you hear the people thronging and they're all saying, give us Barabbas, something is about to happen. We have just gone through a situation this week where our notable president was tried and found guilty. Whether you agree with that or not, it really doesn't matter. The system in playing out said that he is. But if you only see that in terms of politics, you would have missed the big picture. These are signs of the end time. And you may well say it's the last trumpet. And when the last trump is blown, we're told in 1 Thessalonians 4, it says that when it is blown, the dead in Yeshua will rise. And need not be physical dead, but the spiritual dead are now coming alive. and those who are alive will be caught up to meet him. And they have construed that. When you read 1 Thessalonians 4:16 and 17, they have construed that to say the people will be raptured, the church will be raptured. We just read in the book of Elohim, in the book of Psalm 115, 15 and 16, said the heavens belong to Yah, and the earth is given to man. We also read earlier, the sister read in Johanan chapter 3 and verse 13, that no man goes to heaven except he who comes down. But religion teaches all kind of things. And the word is telling us that we ought to be careful. We ought to be careful that we don't get caught up in that kind of affair. Because in Matthew 23, in verse 13, but woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites. What did he call them? Hypocrites. For you shut up the kingdom of heaven. You give the people religion. You shut up the kingdom against men. For ye neither go in yourself, neither suffer them to enter to go in. You give them religion. Oh, yes, you give them religion. You see, what I'm saying is that theologians, scholars, and others over time have, in their denominational ways, have commonly assumed and even asserted that religion and the kingdom are the same as equal. They are not sufficiently similar to be considered equivalent. Therefore, there is a false equivalency committed when you say that. Yeshua did not come to establish a religion. He came to establish a kingdom. And each week you go to church, you say you're a member of a church. He said, I'm looking for citizens. And therefore, you are as alien to the kingdom as a man who is in another country who wants to go to a country that he doesn't have a passport to. And so Yeshua came down and he said, all these things, the laws and the prophets that were preached, these were indication of how you ought to live in the kingdom. And I'm coming to give you an example. I'm going to demonstrate to you how you should live. And if you live this way, then your passport is granted, because there are certain things that you have, because religions have taught you certain things. That means that you're carrying contraband and you cannot come through customs with that. And the church was the custom officer. The church was supposed to look at you, stamp your passport, and send you on, but your flight has been delayed. Your flight is delayed. Why? Because you are traveling with items that you're not supposed to be traveling with. And you ask pejoratively, what things? And I will say, well, you're going to the kingdom and you do not carry the seventh day as a Sabbath. You are harmed with the first day of the week. I will also add to that as a list. Your churches are replete with divorces and remarriages, and we have none of that in the kingdom. You also misconstrue the fluidity of gender. In Genesis, I made it quite clear, it says, yeah, that a man should leave his mother and his father and be joined to a woman. In fact, that's why I made them like that in the first place, Adam and Eve. And certain of your religion now is letting people know that it's okay to bring two of the same together. And so you cannot pass through custom like this. And therefore, if our custom officers, the churches, are allowing aliens to come through custom, we will have to take away their authority. And the light will go out. And you now understand in Revelation 18 and verse 4, while the angel comes with light and light up the place and says, "Come out of her, my people. Come out. Come out." And so, join me in chapter 3 of the book of Yohanan. Chapter 3. And there was a man of the Pharisees, a man of religion. He was a religious man. And his name was Nakdemon. In the English, we call him Nicodemus. That was his name. And he was a ruler of the Yehudim. He was a Jew, but he was a religionist. This one came to Yeshua at night and said to him, "Rabbi, we know that you are a teacher come from Elohim, for no one is able to do these signs you do if Elohim is not with him." He's a keen observer, Nicodemus was. Yeshua answered and said to him, "Truly, truly, I say to you, unless one is born from above, he is unable to see the reign of Elohim." He's unable to see the kingdom of Yah. You didn't hear me. Unless one is born above, he's unable to see the kingdom of heaven, the reign of Elohim. That's what he says. Nicodemus said to him, "How is a man able to be born when he's old? Is he able to enter into his mother's womb a second time and be born?" Nicodemus, being a teacher, a leader, doesn't understand that if he's only born once, he will die twice. And he needs to be born twice so that he may only die once. He doesn't get that at this point. Yeshua answered, "Truly, truly, I say unto you, unless one is born of water and the Spirit, is unable to enter into the reign of Elohim." Are you with me? Unless you're born from above, you can't see the kingdom. It's a reasonable question that Nicodemus had. How can I enter the kingdom? Now, in this passage, you see the clear distinction between religion and the kingdom. Nicodemus is a man of religion, engrossed in it. He's a Pharisee. Not just a Pharisee, but a leading Pharisee, a teacher, a doctor of the law. But Yeshua is letting him know, you can't come here like that. You cannot come into the kingdom like that. And so many of us, we get all stuck in religion. Stuck. In Luke 9 and in verse 11, it says, "But when the multitudes knew it, they followed him, and he received them and spoke to them about the kingdom of Yah." There it is again. His old teaching was about the kingdom. And he healed those who had need of healing. Then Yeshua explains that this is because no one can enter Satan's kingdom unless you bind up the strong man. Did he not say that? And they accuse him of being Beelzebub. But in Matthew 12:28, what did he say? He said, "But if I cast out devils by the Spirit, then the kingdom of Yah is come unto you." Did you get that? He says, "You accuse me of driving out demons by way of demons. But if I drive out demons, you better understand it is because a new kingdom has come on earth." Let me read it again. "But if I cast out devils by the Spirit of Yah, then the kingdom of Yah is come unto you." You can't do that down there. I'm from a new era. I'm from a new place. I am from up there. I have the Spirit. So when I come, you know that the kingdom has come on earth, and I'm doing things because that is superior to down here. The kingdom has come. It's arrived. And so my lifestyle, said Yeshua, is the one that you should emulate so as you can know how to live in the kingdom. The laws and the prophets, they wrote about me. But I'm here now, the kingdom, and you must seek all of my righteousness, all of it. Then everything else you desire will be added unto you. In Luke 12:32, "Fear not, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you" what? The church? Religion? A denomination? An institution? No. "Fear not, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom." Kingdom. So you are a king then. "Oh yes, for this purpose was I born." When they found that out, they said, "He's clashing with Caesar." Because just as Caesar was doing, Caesar was making all the earth like Rome. But Yeshua had now come to make all the earth like heaven. Clash of two kingdoms. So they had to get rid of him. And they plotted. They plotted. And so we read in Matthew 18:23-25, "Therefore is the kingdom of heaven likened unto a certain king, which would take account of his servants. And when he had begun to reckon, one was brought unto him, which owed him 10,000 talents. But for as much as he had not to pay, his master commanded him to be sold, and his wife and children, and all that he had, and payment be made." It's all about the kingdom that we ought to be seeking first. That's what Iyar says. In Luke 4:43-44, what did he say? "I must preach the kingdom of Yah to other cities also, for therefore am I sent." And he preached in the synagogues of Galilee. He preached the kingdom. You notice a lot of what he preached is not what being preached today. He preached the kingdom. And what are we preaching? We're preaching all manner of things. And the word says in Matthew 4 and verse 17, from that time, from what time? As he came into the world. Yeshua began to preach and to say, repent, for the kingdom of heaven has arrived. Repent. Change your thinking. Change it. I'm here for the coefficient of expansion of the kingdom of heaven. The viscosity of your religion is such that it doesn't flow. It's too thick. I want to make it more liquid. That's what he's saying. And so in order for me to change the state, the viscosity of your religion, I need to train some men. And he chose 12 and he sent them out 2 by 2. And the word says, after he had done that, the gospel was going like fire in a field of hay. It was now flowing. And Satan knew he couldn't stop it. And they flogged them. And on the day of Pentecost, you saw what happened. And they imprisoned them. And they beheaded some of them. But it was now flowing because the kingdom was expanding. That's what we're dealing with this morning. How the kingdom of heaven is being expanded. How it is being expanding. And the people are trying to press themselves into it. And you can't do that. You have to go through the door. As there was one door in the ark, Yeshua says, I am the door. I am the door. In those days came Yohanan the Immerser. I'm reading from Matthew chapter 3. In those days, John the Baptist came, and the word said he was preaching in the wilderness of Judea and saying, repent. Why? For the kingdom of heaven is there. John the Baptist preached that message too. John the Baptist preached the kingdom. That's the gospel of the kingdom that he was preaching. Even though he was Old Testament man, because he was the last of those prophets, even though he's in the New Testament. That's the uniqueness of John the Baptist. Are you with me? Why? Why is that? He has come to fulfill all that was spoken of him. Everything. But even baptism we've not understood. Because baptism means that you submit. It is submission to your master teacher. In our case, Yeshua. The water baptism is just a sign that you intend to follow the Messiah. That's all it means. But he said you have to be baptized from above. You need the Spirit. And Nicodemus was at that point void of that. Void of that. And so we are told that he has come to expand the kingdom. And let me remind you why everything was so troubling for them. Come with me to 2 Kings chapter 17. This is a text we read a couple of weeks ago, but it's bare replication. It's worth it. And we're reading from verse 24 of chapter 17 of 2 Kings. And the king of Assyria brought men from Babylon and from Cutha and from Ava and from Amath and from Sepharvaim, and placed them in the cities of Samaria instead of the children of Israel, and they possessed Samaria and dwelt in the cities thereof. And so it was at the beginning of their dwelling there that they feared not Yah, therefore Yahweh sent lions among them, which slew some of them. So just to concretize the point is that when the children of Israel had been captured by the Assyrians, they were brought to Babylon and the cities of the Medes, and they brought in aliens into Israel. That's how they colonized Israel. It's in the word. And that's how they populated the other countries. But when the Greeks and the Romans came into power, they didn't move the people. They said, you can stay there in St. Kitts and Barbuda and Jamaica and the rest of the islands. And we will bring English Rome to you. And we will teach you the Queen's English. And you will no longer speak your own language. Away with Swahili, they say. You don't have to speak Geese anymore. So when Yeshua came and Yeshua says, I will give them a new language in Zephaniah 3 and verse 10. I have brought Hebrew back. I have come into the land and I see it's infested with Greek culture and Roman culture. I look up on the hills and I see Antony Fortress. I see the barracks of Rome. This is Israel. I see Roman soldiers. I see all around that my father's country, the city where his throne will be, Jerusalem, is surrounded by Roman soldiers. And they expected him to fight the Roman soldiers. And they thought that Barabbas would be a better man to do it. But the question is, Barabbas is an insurrectionist. We're dealing with that as an issue in our country, if I may use that term right now. And many people make reference to January the 6th. And you almost get the impression that people are saying, again, by way of attitudinal disposition, give us Barabbas. Are you with me? The point I want to make is that a righteous Israel is more respected and more feared than a military Israel. A righteous America is more feared and more respected than a military America. If only my people who are called by my name will get rid of their pride and humble themselves. You didn't hear me. And that's why, as June is coming up, you know they have a Pride Month. And we're told in the Word that pride comes before a fall. You're up in Iyar's face doing certain things that are contraband that cannot come into the kingdom. And the church, unlike a sieve, will not take away the lumps out and let the liquid flow through. Pride Month. Have we not read the biography in Ezekiel chapter 28 or Isaiah chapter 14 about Satan? He says, I will exalt my throne to the Most High, above the Most High. That's what he said. I will do this, and I will do that. What am I saying? When you find that kind of pomposity, that kind of impudence, that kind of insolence, that kind of bravado, when you put that in the blender, what do you get out of it? Foolishness. Satan tried that long time ago. What was Satan really saying? Satan was perhaps saying, I'm going to make Eden great again. Only Iyar can do that. Are you with me? And he was thrown down. And we were warned, were we not? Woe to the inhabitants of the earth. Why? Because Satan has come down and he's full of anger. He's full of anger. He's bitter because we're told in Revelation, John said, and I saw a stream and I saw a tree in that garden, and on that tree it had fruits, and the leaves were for the healing of the nation. And therefore, Iyar's gift of that tree of life, he has not withdrawn, but he wants to make it known that disobedience will get you banned from it, but obedience will give you access to it, because he has come to establish a kingdom. A kingdom. But religion teaches that you can come in to a church and behave anyhow, dress anyhow, eat any kind of food, and you are still all right. That's religion. You're a member of a religion, fine, but you're not a citizen of the kingdom of Yah. And so we owe it to ourselves to go back to the word of Revelation, because we're told this one who is speaking to us now, he has spoken to all and sundry in times gone past, but now he's speaking to us. And so let us go to that text that I believe should be made required reading. Revelation 18 and verse 22 and 23 verses. And the voice of harpers and musicians and the pipers and the trumpeters shall be heard no more at all in thee. No craftsman of whatever craft he be shall be found any more in thee, and the sound of the millstone shall be heard no more at all in thee. And the light of a candle shall shine no more at all in thee. Let's break there. Let's break there. And let's look at this connotatively and denotatively. Let's look at it. When we read in Revelation chapter 2 and 3, when John was on Patmos, Johanan, and he saw 7 candlesticks, the word denotatively, which means that it is defined like you would find it in a dictionary. It says, John, the 7 candlesticks are the 7 assemblies. Ephesus, Smyrna, Pergamum, Thyatira, Sardis, Philadelphia, and Laodicea. 7 candlesticks, one for each era. Understand that. We're now living in Laodicea, the last candlestick. But John here, because remember the book of Revelation is just one continuous vision for John. People have put chapters in there and verses and so on. That's to aid our understanding. But it was never like that. We were told to search the scriptures, not look them up. So John is letting you know this candlestick, the last one, Laodicea. Let's read it again for emphasis. And the light of a candlestick will shine no more at all in thee, and the voice of the bridegroom, who's the bridegroom? Yeshua. And of the bride shall be heard no more at all in thee, for the merchants were the great men of the earth, for by their sorceries were all nations deceived. How many nations were deceived? All nations were deceived. You're deceived in religion. Many will come in my name, says he, proclaiming themselves that they are doing my work. But they are counterfeits. They are false. You live in an era when men tell lies like autumn leaves falling from the trees or confetti at a wedding. I listen to the courts and I listen to the reports. I read the newspaper. And I am amazed that men, human beings, who are living by way of borrowed breath, could bring themselves to tell lies so consistently before the King of the universe, as if they don't know that they're going to be judged. And you know what caused me to chuckle at some point is the fact that when I hear them say, oh, he lied under oath. Did you get that? Meaning they went to court, gave evidence, and took oath that they would tell the truth, but they lie. Whenever you lie under oath. Because Yah is the judge. When you got baptized and say you would follow Yeshua, it was an oath. So every lie you tell, whether you do it in the earthly court or not, you have lied under oath. When you decide you would get married and that woman, that man would be your lawful wedding husband or wife, and only the sleep of death could intervene, and then you went down toward downtown and ask the secular judge to undo what the divine judge has done. You have lied. And it doesn't matter how skillful you are. If you cause another person to think other than what is, you have lied. You've lied. You can hide from your pastor. You can hide from your bishop. You can hide from the elder, from the bishop, but not from the king priest. In John 5:22, he said, the Father judgeth no man, because he has given all judgment to his Son. You know why? Listen to me. On Thursday evening, as the sun was climbing up towards the horizon to let us know that Thursday will be no more this week, the news broke that we have a verdict. And this thing was noised abroad beyond the confines of this America, that we have a verdict. In a more profound way, in a wider context, in Revelation 22, it's breaking news. What did I say? It's breaking news. Newsflash. Verse 11. He that is unjust, let him be unjust still. And he which is filthy, let him be filthy still. And he that is righteous, let him be righteous still. And he that is kodash, holy, let him be holy still. If you read that, you better understand it. It means that Yeshua, who's making intercessions for us, he's the one who makes the atonement for us. He has now stepped out of the sanctuary, which is in heaven. And therefore, we no longer at this point have a mediator in there. Are you with me? So when he came out, whatever pose you were found to be in, that Kodak moment in life, when the celestial camera take your mug shot and say, whatever pose you're in, this is how you will spend your eternity. Because what? Because what? He's making reference to Revelation chapter 20. You better come with me there. And verse 11, and I saw a great white throne, and him that sat on it, from whose face the earth and the heaven fled away, and there was found no place for them. And I saw the dead, small and great, stand before Yahweh, and the books were open, and another book were open, which is the book of life. And the dead were judged out of those things which were written in the books according to their works. And the sea gave up the dead which were in it, and death and Sheol delivered up the dead which were in them, and they were judged, every man according to their work. How many people were judged? Every single man. And death and Sheol were cast in the lake of fire. This is the second death. This is why I said earlier, if you're only born once, that's the physical birth, you will die twice, and this is your hand. This is your hand. You will die the second death in the lake of fire. But if you're born twice, as Nicodemus was told, you perhaps would only die once. And I say perhaps Because when Yeshua come, there will be people alive who have not tasted death. And whomever was not found written in the book of life was cast in the lake of fire. So all that you see playing out across the world, whether in Britain, in Brazil, in the islands, in America, it's recorded. And if you are not with the saints, you are in the lake of fire with the wicked. It's simple. So all that they have done, and even when a jury may have found you not guilty, Yah says you're still guilty if you've sinned. Even if you escape the punishment of the earthly courts, you will not escape the punishment of the heavenly kingdom. So, to cap this, as we conclude this extension of the kingdom, as we looked at earlier, as I indicated, we started out by saying we want to look at and explain it through the thermal expansion. When you eat up a piece of metal, it changes the state of it, the grain of it, the state of it. And it defines the tendency either in length, density, area, or volume. And that's why when you read the book of Revelation and you read the passage relating to Smyrna, when the heat of persecution came up on that assembly, it changed its own texture. It was meant to be evil, but it was good, because that church did not get any rebuke. That assembly did not get any rebuke, neither did Philadelphia. But Laodicea, our era, you're wretched, you're poor, you're blind, you're wicked, you're naked, you can't see. And so we looked at the viscosity of the word, of the gospel, that in some places it's not flowing, it was too thick. It was like jam, like chocolate. It was like honey, not flowing. But if you take that said honey of the word, because David said it is sweeter than honey, and spread it on the bread, Yeshua, he said, I am the bread, and you take a bite of his flesh. How do we sing? Sweeter than honeycomb. So what we're saying is that we came into the world in a particular state. And when we accept the word, we are extended in many different ways, in knowledge, in wisdom, in understanding. Our own volume and density changes when we have the truth, because that truth will set you free. Sanctify them by thy word. Thy word is true. And let it be known, therefore, you are a citizen of a kingdom, not a member of a religion. In Yeshua's name I pray. Amen.